How lucky can one guy be?
You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
We're back. This is Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We're broadcasting from the Natural Green Lawn and Landscape Studios, and we're brought to you by Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. As an American Family Insurance agent, Kim believes that there's much more to insurance than the policy itself. It's about providing you with dependable protection and services. Kim believes that trust and credibility cannot be demanded. It can only be earned by what you say and what you do. Give Kim a call at 651-482-1598 and tell her you heard it here. It's time now for a message from the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association. This MHA Minute is brought to you by Start to Finish Maintenance Contractors. Start to Finish provides 24-hour service for all of your home and business maintenance needs. Call Start to Finish at 952-259-1219. That's 952-259-1219 for your home, for your business, and for your peace of mind.
When you rent out your home, you automatically become a small business owner and are subject to all kinds of rules and regulations. Fair housing laws, rental licensing, CRPs, lead paint, radon, carbon dioxide, just to name a few. As someone who provides rental housing, you'll have to learn more about your community, your city council, and your law enforcement agencies than you ever imagined. But if you properly manage your business, you'll also become an important and positive partner in the community. The Minnesota Multi-Housing Association is the most comprehensive resource you'll find for everything you need to help you successfully manage your rental business. Visit mmha.com. That's two M's, mmha.com. Look around the website, download the free guide to successful property management, download the free brochure about the eviction process, and learn about the many ways you can turn your small business into a good business.
We've been talking about this proposed regulation. I'm not even sure it's legislation, Gene. It's a regulation, so it may not even require passage by their Congress.
That's a good point. It does say earlier on that there is going to be a hearing on the proposed rules on March 11th. So they're giving some time, and that it'll be at the commission hearing room in Colorado, and it says any associations, managers, managing companies wish to testify, they're encouraged to do so.
Now, this is a proposed regulation that would regulate private property towing. Does it have any impact on the city, for example, and how they tow? No.
This is just for private property, and that to me, in and of itself, is part of what I call the arrogance of government, to think that they can require something of a private sector that they do not require of themselves. Now, to show and to get into a little bit of the details of what makes this so cumbersome, and I think just an obnoxious law or change in regulation here. Let me just read for our listeners some of the things that will be taking place. That these people who are writing this, you can tell that they've got an axe to grind about towing companies, because the things that they're thinking about makes me want to think like that SNL skit. Really? So here's some of the things that they're requiring. They are so specific to say that the towing carrier shall have the following. They must have fender coverings on all front and rear wheels. Do you really need to be that specific?
Okay.
The following accessories must be carried by every towing carrier. 1 shovel and 1 broom.
We feel like real estate is highly regulated. I had no idea.
Do you have to do that?
Towing was so regulated.
And so those are kind of silly, but here are the ones that I think that are really obnoxious and will be cumbersome and unfair to towing companies. It says that for what's called a non-consensual tow, which means the person who...
That's interesting.
Yes, yeah. Not someone who said, pick up my car because it
please
doesn't
tow
work.
my car. Yeah, okay.
For non-consensual tows, it says that there's a requirement that the towing company, within 30 minutes of picking up the vehicle, must notify the responsible law enforcement agency having jurisdiction over the place from where the motor vehicle was towed.
Okay,
this is an example. If they don't, if they do it in 31 minutes and not 30, I'm serious.
I believe you.
They cannot charge a penny for their service.
So they need to notify the city, probably because the police department gets sick and tired of people calling saying my car was stolen, when really the car was illegally parked and was towed.
Yes, and so apparently we have to burden the police each and every time, all the time.
Yeah, is it better to have the
do this instead of putting it on the person who's supposed to be responsible
for the car? Yeah.
Again, that's what we're talking about here. Just like that first story with that Speaker of the House. If you're going to live in a house, if you're going to drive a vehicle, you got to be an adult. You've got to be responsible. You got to quit putting it on someone else to do all of this work for you. You've got to know what you're doing. A couple of other things that I think are important here. It says that we need to have each and every time a tow takes place now, someone from the association or the management company has to be there. They have to be present.
Oh, not just call it in. They have to be there?
They have to be present. You can't call it in.
This is the proposed regulation.
Because it has to have your signature. You can't give them pre-signed cards and say, go ahead. We'll, some people will do that. They'll say, you have these.
Here's my authorization.
Here's the authorization. Yeah. I'll call it in. You don't come out. So they're still still asking each and every time it's going to be towed. But they said, no, you've got to be there in person. And you have to sign off on it. Otherwise, it can't be towed. Other things that need to take place in this whole laundry list of items, you need to include the name, address, telephone number of the person authorizing the tow. Why? Because there are 3 copies that are made. One that's given to the towing company, one that's given to the person who authorized it, and one will be given to the person whose car was towed. Tell me if this isn't going to set up angry people, and if things aren't going to get out of hand.
Yeah, it's incredible.
How can they do that and even begin to think that there is anything responsible with that? Think of the retaliation. Look at the story that we had last week. Remember, here was a guy who parked his car on the sidewalk.
That's right.
He had it towed. The vehicle was picked up and started to move away.
Yeah.
He jumped on, saying, stop, stop. And he got run over by the towing truck and his vehicle. According to this new law, it says that until the vehicle is entirely off of the property of the homeowner association or the private property, if the owner of the vehicle lets the tow driver know, they have to stop and drop the car.
Really?
Think of how many more people now who are going to be running towards a moving tow truck to get them to drop it so they don't have to pay as much.
Yeah.
And in light of the person who got killed, is this being responsible?
Yeah. It's crazy.
And this is government that's doing this?
What it gets down to is the HOA has to regulate its own parking because the city won't. The city is not going to regulate the parking on a private property. Mm-hmm. And yet they want to pass legislation that makes it almost impossible for the private property owner to regulate their parking. It's so unfair and it's so arbitrary that it just makes me mad.
Do you know what we really need? And I seriously mean this. We need our government officials. And if you're listening on the radio, I mean you, city councilman. I mean you, state representative. I mean you, our congressmen, you, our senators. Mm-hmm. You need to acknowledge the governance of a homeowners association and recognize that it is just as valid as you are.
That's right.
just
That's
as
right.
valid. And if we are going, why don't we go from the premise that people are adults? People know what they're talking about. And you know what? The state of Minnesota doesn't need to jump in to a city of Minneapolis matter when they tow vehicles. Because
That's right.
they ought to know what's going on.
That's right.
Neither should the state jump into an HOA on private land
There you go.
where people are given the responsibility, like you said, to keep the streets clear for emergency vehicles and other things to take place.
Mm-hmm.
Why not back them up instead of trying to make things harder and harder for them?
Absolutely right.
So it is just ridiculous. What it is government putting a restriction on HOAs that they would never put on themselves.
Oh, gosh, no. And they're not putting it on themselves.
Well, it looks like that's about all the time that we have for today's show. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of the weekend, everybody. We look forward to having you here next Saturday on Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
Bye-bye, everybody!
I have been chosen. Farewell, my friend. I go on to a better place.
Tough to say goodbye.